And welcome back. In this tutorial I'm going to do an extension on the WText widget in Witty, and what I'm going to try to discuss is how you can use the WText widget with localized strings and specifically with external XML files. You can create your own XML files that contain HTML content and use them as the actual content for your web application. This will include using the WText widget, and this is not just confined just to this specific widget, but since we're just talking about the WText widget itself, we're going to keep it within that context. You also use the Witty Applications Message Resource Bundle. Now the Message Resource Bundle is its own Witty class. It doesn't, looking at the hierarchy, it does not inherit from the Witty object, but it is part of the Witty library. And we're going to use the Witty strings tr function. Let's go ahead and get started here. Now, the example I'm going to create uses a couple of things from what I just described. Let's go ahead and just bring this up. See if I can do a search. See, message resource. Okay, here's the message resource bundle, and this is part of the Witty application class. And basically, all this is doing is it helps you to import. It says a list of XML files to look at for localized strings. Basically, we need this class to be able to do like an import of external XML files, and like I said, these XML files are going to contain HTML content. And then if you look up under it, you see how the documentation is pointing to the Witty string tr function. You use this function to create a localized string, a key from a localized string, and basically that key is going to be in your XML file, and then the value is going to be any HTML or plain text that you create that you want to import into your web application. And so we could create a string, which I'm going to do in the example, and I'm going to create an entire HTML table that's going to be imported, so you can do all your markup in that external file. And guess what? Once you import it and you build your application, you don't have to keep doing a compile, change the source code, and compile again. You can just change it from the XML file, refresh the page, and you have your dynamic content. Let's see if we can see. Let's go ahead and get started on the example. So we're going to do project, new project, projects, and we're going to create a new folder. This one I'm going to call WText 3. And click yes. And I've already created this project, but we're going to do it from scratch. Okay, we've created a new Witty project. Going to open up our source file. And then what I'm going to do, now you don't have to do this part. Go here, source, do a Control A. See? Alright. Get rid of this. And that was actually the finished application. So basically we have our project, and what we're going to do is get rid of this. Just going to leave that as a comment. Going to add the WText. We need the WText object, and then from here, this is where we're going to use the message resource bundle. And actually, even though this will compile, we can't exactly use this yet, because we have to actually create the application. And for our purposes, because the way that my Komodo projects are structured, we need to compile this project first, and then we'll be able to add our XML file. And I'll show you what's going on right here. This is basically saying, because like I said, WMessageResourceBundle helps you to import an XML file or any kind of external resource. And in this case, we call the WMessageResourceBundle. We call the use function, and what it does, now we haven't discussed this, but this is basically the same thing as this right here. Remember, there's a shared instance of the Witty application that's always running in your application. That's basically all that is. It's just like a shortcut. So instead of you typing all that out, you just type this right here. And you can use that for a lot of things. But for this, for this tutorial, I'm not going to go all into it. Just know that this is getting a reference to the Witty application and the application root. This is the application root. And let's go to the documentation on that so you can actually see it. Basically, you know what the application root is. It's basically where the actual application resides. And you'll see that. As you can see, here's app root, and it's part of two classes. It says the app root property. Basically, it allows you to use, actually be able to use, external resources. Typically, message resources bundles like XML files, CSV files, even database files, or any kind of files. It doesn't have to be that. Any kind of external resources. And as you can see from the examples, the message resources uses the application root. And then these are the names of the actual files. That could be text.xml, source.xml. That could be a database file. In our case, this is going to be an XML file. And you don't actually have to use at least for XML files, you don't have to use the .xml. This is the resource folder /webpage.xml, and you just keep the .xml extension off of the name. And then once we do that, we have imported our XML file, and so I'm gonna call this webpage text is going to equal to our Witty string, the tr function. Again, like I said, the tr function in this case reads a key from the XML file. It's reading a key, and you'll see what that key looks like from the XML file, and it gets the value. It gets that value from the XML, from that key, and imports it into your string. I mean, you can import entire pages with this. And basically, the .to UTF-8 is basically a standard C++ string. So if you didn't want to use just a Witty string, you just call this function, and you'll be able to use this as a C++ string. As you can see, we have the C++ type. And let's go ahead and import that into our project. Type string, and add the namespace, standard. There you go. So now we have the actual web page text that we're going to import. Then we're going to create a WText widget. Web page text. And we're going to add it to our widget hierarchy. And as you can see, that's really it. The only thing we need to do is actually see what the XML file looks like. But this actually calls the resource bundle, imports our webpage.xml that's in our resource folder, Then we call the witty string tr function to parse the key to get the value, imports it into this text, and then we just pass that text into our witty text object, and it'll display that content onto the screen. And that's it. And one thing I do want to make clear, there is something else in the witty library called witty templates. This is like a poor man's version of witty templates. It is not exactly like witty templates. Witty templates, you can do a whole lot more. You can, I'll do a tutorial on that. But it's something like that, but that's a whole nother topic. So I just want you to understand that this is not templates in the true sense of using the witty library. This is not witty templates. Okay, now that you have that, like I said, for our sake, we have to actually build the program first, because if you look at this, the way I have my project set up, you don't have a resources folder up under here. So let's go ahead and build this. Okay, and we're not actually going to run it. We just need it for it to create our projects. And there's a whole reason why I have created my projects to have this, the name of the project .app. Trying to make it cross-platform. I used to do a lot of Objective-C, even on Windows, and their structure was based on something like this. So that's why I have my projects looking like this, where it has a .app. If you ever investigate a .app executable on the Mac, up under it is something like a whole bunch of folders, and you actually have the Unix executable. It's the same thing here. Here's our executable. Here is our resources folder. That's why we built the project. We needed that folder to be created. And now we're going to create a new XML file, and it's going to be called webpage.xml. And I'm going to do a little cheating here. I'm going to go here. Because actually I already did this. Resources. Some copy and pasting, because it would take too long to actually do it from scratch. It's a lot of markup. And then if we save this, and let me just show you what's going on. I'm not going to try to break down the entire file, but if we make this a little bit shorter, as you can see, we have our XML file, and then we have our messages element. And then up under it, we have a message element. All your XML files have to look something like this. You have to have a messages element, and then you have to have one or more message elements, child elements up under messages. So you could have a message here with HTML content. Then you could create another one, and create another one, and create another one. However complex you want it to be, or if you want to use multiple messages that have different content that will be used throughout your site, you could do that. You could totally do that. In my case, I just have one, and then you have to set an ID, and in this case, here is our ID called template, and you could call it whatever you want. And if you go back and look at the source code, here's what we did. We imported this file, and now we can get access to it using the witty strings tr function. We called the template key, and basically that's all it is a key, and then it'll import the value from that key. Any content that you have in here, it could be plain text or it could be HTML, and in our case, and it could even be JavaScript if you wanted to do that. And in this case, I just imported an HTML table. It has a couple of rows, a couple of columns, and you'll see what it looks like. It's simple, but it's pretty sophisticated. Doesn't really do anything. It's just a quick example to show you that you can import HTML tags using the witty string tr function, using the witty text object. So basically, that's all you really need. Just know that when you create an XML file, you have to have a messages element, and then you have to have a message child element and give it an ID, which is your key that you want to use for when you want to get access to any external content. So if we go ahead, we don't even have to build this because we've already built our application. We can just run it. And of course, Windows are going to prompt you to add this to the firewall. Click yes. Then let's see here. And this is already brought up. But let's just refresh it. Uh-oh. So again, there's my mistakes. Let me make sure. Page.xml, template. Trying to make sure everything is the way I want it.